Welcome to another episode of the Clean Palette Podcast. I'm your host, Justice Johnson. Today, we peel back the paint on this artist perspective of Max Bussell, and we have him with us. He is an LA-based artist. And how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So you were just talking before we kind of got going here that you aren't originally from LA. When did you decide to make the move?
Well, I went on like a gap year program to Central America where I met a girl who lived in LA, and then we did we were dating apart for a year, and then I got a free house here, and I wanted to be closer to my girlfriend. Long story short.
Okay. And kind of just give us a little background on yourself. Like how old are you, Max?
I'm 32.
32. And I was looking at your art page and I noticed that you just started recently. You've started the Instagram at least for only a little under a year now. You started in what, November was your first post?
Yeah, yeah. I started because of the pandemic, basically. I started last August painting, but since then, like completely obsessed every single day. That's like all I think about now.
What's your medium of choice? Like what is your go-to when you hit your art table?
Acrylic, that's basically all I've used. I did watercolor like one day, and then I just got an iPad, so I've been getting into digital art.
Digital art and is my biggest nightmare. I'm so clunky when it comes to digital. I don't know how people do it. I give all hats off to anybody that does digital art. Um,
It's such, I mean, I just started like 2 weeks ago, but it's such a different beast having any color, any all the brushes, any medium. It's just
anything that
like
you want to say
overwhelming.
at your fingertips.
Yeah.
How would you describe like your overall art style, like with your acrylic pieces?
I guess just slices of life, I guess, in a
Okay.
way. Uh, Moments around me. I almost try to think of it like a journal, like an artistic journal
So
in a way.
when you're coming up with ideas for pieces, do you use like reference photos or do you kind of paint while you're in the moment or just like from memory?
Almost all reference photos. Like I take a lot of walks and I go running a lot. I'm just always around, and whenever I see something, I'll just take a picture with my phone, and I
Hmm.
have just a folder on my phone full of possible things that I could turn into paintings. And usually like when I go out to paint, I'll just go through them, and in that moment I'll be like, okay, I'll try that one.
Hmm.
I'll do that one.
So have you always been into the art scene or like was the pandemic just something like, all right, I'm just going to give it a shot, kind of bored, stuck in the house during lockdown? Um, was it one of those moments or have you always been kind of drawn to the page or canvas?
Well, not necessarily the page or canvas. I have taken a couple of art classes, but I grew up skateboarding and filming skateboarding a lot since I was like 14. I don't really skate anymore. I still think about it all the time, but it's what got me into thinking artistically and realizing that if you want to get good at something, you have to do it a lot, especially something artistic. You have to think about it a lot and do it a lot. You can't just magically be good at it. And so I think that instilled in me that kind of mentality that I am using now in a way.
Hmm.
I kind of feel the same way like I used to when I was skating, especially going around looking for paintings in a way, like looking for reference photos kind of reminds me of like going around looking for skate spots or something in a way.
Do you have any like art? What is something that draws like your inspiration? Are there any like standout artists or like pop culture references that you try to implement within your work or
I don't know that many artists, but I really like light in general. Like obviously Edward Hopper, I know him,
mm-hmm.
and some people have compared me to David Hockney. and stuff like that. But I just love seeing light represented in like a really simple way. Like you don't see much on the canvas, but it's enough to like, oh, I feel that light, basically.
While I was looking at your while I was looking at some of your pieces, I did get an Edward Hopper kind of slice of life vibe, where it is simplistic, but simplistic in a way that draws you in and just lets you kind of absorb the piece as a whole without having to like overanalyze. It's very nice. I like the way that you layer and texture your pieces. It's it's
Thank you.
very visually pleasing. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, no problem. So, what is your? I know that you said you use acrylic. Is there any like standout brand that you use, or like any? Because I know with mine recently, like I have a drawer, and now I'm a staple for using the Academy brand for my acrylic works. Is there any standout piece that you use, or kind of just anything that you find on the?
I've been using Amsterdam. I think that's the brand. I haven't tried that many brands, honestly, but
Okay,
yeah, that's what I've been using. Basics, I think.
basics. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, I'm just curious, with your portrait pieces, because you do a lot of slices of life, but then I've seen a few different character styles that you've been playing with. Are those based on real people?
Yeah, yeah. The recent ones, especially, are my family. Almost all of them are. I'm looking at like photos from the '90s, my childhood photos, and I'm using those as reference photos right now, a lot of the time. But also in my earlier stuff, if you go back, there's a kind of almost caricature portrait sort of portraits.
Mm-hmm.
I went through a phase of doing almost all portraits for a while, like when I was first learning, and I would say that was the first time that I like looked up how do I do a portrait? Like how do I paint a portrait? And I saw like a step by step thing, and I went through that. That was like the first time I did like some research on how to do this, on how to paint.
It's such a portraits are such a unique thing because every face is, even though you can do like your standard template on how to do a face, like the nose can have so much structure to it or like not enough structure. Every little piece is just like faces are so unique that it makes it so difficult. I absolutely I like the challenge of doing faces, but in a way it is like a whole different animal because I can think, plus when you're so close with acrylic that you can think that you're doing really well on the piece, and once you take a step back, I've had pieces that look exactly nothing like the person that was the reference photo. um
Yeah.
what do you think some of your biggest challenges are with your work so far? Like what is the problem that you come across the most?
Um, like a consistent problem, I guess.
Or an
Just
obstacle that like either mental or like a mental block or could be anything from like subject matters that you
honestly,
struggle to paint.
it's in a way I've gotten more into social media, and I think that's in a way kind of affected me mentally. Um, because like I was thinking back, like was reminiscing on the time when I didn't think about the likes or the follows or anything, and I was just painting every day, and I was just free. And it's not like I cared that much about those things, but it affects us,
Mm-hmm.
especially because as artists we have to have some sort of feedback, and that's our new type of feedback in this society.
It,
Um,
the internet age is very strange in my opinion because of the way that social media works. And what I mean by that is the feedback isn't necessarily like criticism for the most part, unless you have like a core following. It is just simply likes. Um,
yeah.
it is one of the times where you like other types of accounts, like sports accounts, or you can have like pop culture accounts, and they have people in the comments commenting on the post or like making references to other things. Art accounts, you get all the likes, and that is about it. Nobody comments, nobody like does any criticism. Nobody does any feedback on how they like things. You get maybe a handful of comments. And that's the hardest part because then you're only focusing on the number and not kind of what actually comes out of it. Um,
Right.
the you've gathered a decent amount like a decent following in your short time on Instagram though. How did like not I know
Mhm.
that we're kind of talking about to get away from the numbers here, but was it almost instant or did it kind of stagger as your style
It was
changed?
it was pretty quick. When I started to switch some things, I used to, I think, post too many at a time when I first started, and I wasn't using hashtags and all like the Instagram things that help to show your profile to more people.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't doing those things, and I think that kind of switched. I do promote some posts, which for sure helps. I have the professional Instagram page and all that.
Have you gotten into? I know I interview a lot of artists on here that have implemented the TikTok profiles. Have you started to kind of bounce into the video realm with your art? Kind of give it a little.
N- No, like when I paint, I try to like, I'm so like intensely. I That's all I want to do because most of the time I want to finish the whole painting within that day,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's like I don't like to talk. I don't like to focus on anything besides just battling that painting and getting that done and then celebrating that night that I got the painting done.
What is the piece that has taken you the longest amount of time to finish? Or
Actually, I just oh, what
or
were
I
you
was
gonna
going to
say?
say if there isn't necessarily one, what is like the average time that a piece will take you?
Average time to like 4 to 6 hours, I would
Okay.
say. Um, Sometimes less, I guess, but it depends on the size. But I just did a bigger one that I'm looking at right now. That's why I'm looking over there. And uh, that I decided purposefully to take longer on that just because I wanted to just try it. I wanted to learn, and I felt like I did learn something from taking my time and thinking of it in sections and thinking today I'm going to do this section. I'm gonna do, rather than like trying to power through the whole thing and then kind of not caring about half of it and be like, okay, it's done, but could have been better. And so
How
this one took 3 days.
3 days? Okay.
Yeah.
I I recently got into oil painting, and the cool thing about oil painting is that it takes so long for each layer to dry that you have to take your time, and it really forces patience, and like super cool things will come out of it because you have to come back to the piece with a new perspective, or you might come to it
Mm.
with a new perspective, but trying to get yourself in the same mind state, or like if you're not coming at it from a new angle is interesting. Have you thought about getting into any oil painting?
Yes. It kind of intimidates me just to like go out and buy that stuff and figure it out. I don't know. You have to get all the different turpentines.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It intimidates me. So one day I would, but I think I would want to take a class or something and properly learn oil.
Yeah, I got a bunch for last Christmas. So I've kind of been experimenting a little bit here and here. Um very interesting, very interesting animal to kind of mess with. So you were saying that it usually takes you about 4 to 6 hours and your longest so far is 3 days. What are your thoughts on like the old school method where a piece would take years to make? Would you ever see yourself taking like that much time on a piece?
For me, I mean, right now I couldn't see myself doing that. Um, but I've been learning about like different types of painting. Uh, and I learned about alla prima type of
Okay.
painting, and that essentially just means the philosophy of finishing the whole painting in that moment.
Okay.
From what I've gathered, I hope I'm not butchering that, but I'm pretty sure that's true. So I really like that, and so I honestly, so my answer is no. I don't think I would take years, but I respect that, and that's amazing. but to me, it feels like writing a novel rather than I like writing short stories,
Okay.
I guess.
Um, I I like that approach where it's all of a lot of people call their pieces like expressions of the moment and like getting their feeling out onto the page then. So I don't know, like unless it was a large concept piece, I don't think I could take a year on a piece. I think the
Hmm.
longest that I've worked on a piece is maybe 3 months or like, but that was because I started it and then lost all motivation to do it and had to kind of work my way back into the piece and like do a little bit here and then stop and go. That's the only time I could work on a piece that long, really, unless I took like a
Yeah.
hiatus. But I can't see myself taking any sort of super long duration. I feel like I'm not the same person year after year where I could like come back into the same mindset that I started out the piece in.
Right. And then I would always feel like I'm gonna mess it up this day or something. Like after all this work, like suddenly I messed. I don't know. I'd rather be like if I messed it up, that was one day rather than I don't know,
I
rather than a whole year of
I
work.
have a Kobe painting to my right that was a commission, and
Mm.
the I worked on it for maybe I think I got more than half of it done in one sitting. And then I lost all motivation to do it. And I tried to come back and I tried to force myself into that, uh, into that creative mindset and like, okay, I got to get this done. I got to do it. I ended up butchering it. I had, I literally smeared purple paint all the way over the top and started from ground zero. Um, have you had large creative blocks like, and if so, how do you navigate uh, that little sector?
I wouldn't say large creative blocks. I usually get over it pretty quickly, but I do feel a kind. Oh yeah, I was kind of going with the social media thing that sometimes I feel like I want to top what I did the day before, and so there's that weight of like, oh, I feel like I did a great painting that yesterday. I want to do that again, but
Mm-hmm.
oh man, I don't know if I can. So to answer your question, how I deal with it is through a lot of meditation and a lot of breathing techniques and yoga and exercise and any which way I can just get my mind off of anxiety, I guess, and off of the future and off of is this painting going to work out or not? And just kind of go into fight or flight mode before I start painting, just to be like, okay, I'm going to paint now.
Do you set times to paint or do you kind of do you wait for the urge to kind of swell up and to go into a painting?
Generally, I paint around. Recently, it's been around noon or 1. But since I got the iPad, I've been going and like having coffee and painting and like digital painting from life. That's another thing. Nice thing about the digital is I've only done stuff from life, which I haven't done. I've done some like landscape painting, but mainly it's from reference photos, and so it's been nice with digital. It's all been from life.
Nice. So do you what is your day job, if you wouldn't mind me asking? Like, is art what you do full time? Do you have a separate job that you kind of work in the meantime? Um,
Well, I was a massage therapist for like 5 years until the pandemic, and I was getting pretty burnt out on that, anyways. And it honestly was never something that I wanted to do forever. I knew I wanted to do art, but I just decided to pick something. Um, and so I've been collecting unemployment. Thank you. Thank you, government. Um, and honestly, it's because of that that's enabled me to be a painter. Like I don't think I would have ever been a painter if it wasn't for the time that was given to me because of the pandemic and unemployment and all this stuff. So
it's interesting that you say that because that's the exact not the exact reason, but it's very similar to how I got started in consistently making art. Um, I started doing it in April of last year was when I really got continuously going on my art page. And so it's interesting that like you come from the same mind, not necessarily the mindset, but kind of same circumstances, different area. in how it worked. And I was doing research for a podcast a few weeks ago, or I guess it was maybe a few months ago at this point, that in the 1930s they had art grants for the Great Depression because there wasn't a lot of art being produced because people were trying to go and find new jobs, and so I almost consider the unemployment checks as a new wave of art inspiration because you can go on hikes, you can go on walks, go do whatever you need to do to clear your mind and like just focus on the artwork now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so I'm wondering what kind of art will truly show within like from the period of 2020 to 2021 versus maybe 10 years from now. Because I feel like a lot more people are free to do what they actually
Mhm.
want to do versus the day-to-day humdrum of like the rat race.
Right. Yeah, like it's kind of like seeds are being planted right now, artistic seeds. And in 10 years from now, what will they look like?
I'm so I kind of want to get into some of these pieces that you shared, and we can start with whatever one you want to start with. You sent
All right.
three.
Yeah, let me just pull those up so I have them. Yeah, well, we talked about the portraits a little bit. Yeah, there's the portraits. Like I said, it was the first time that I like looked up how to do a proper portrait. So I like started with the darker shadows and worked my way in. Also, with all these portraits, I was getting a little into like naming them and coming up with backstories. I kind of forget their names now, but um, I was
This
getting into
one,
that.
I screenshot the name of this one. I wonder if it rings a bell. This is Emmanuel.
Yes, yes,
So what
yeah, and I just really love. Mhm.
is this one of the ones that is kind of based on your family, or is this
No, no, this is an older one. I picked it just to like show an older piece, I
okay?
guess, and then I showed like kind of one from recent, and then I showed a digital one just to show that I've been doing digital.
Gotcha.
Um,
So with the with the portrait pieces, is this kind of the main style that you go with? And kind of just go with what is your mindset when you get into like a portrait piece?
well, with these older portraits, I was more trying to like go by the book that I was reading online of the how to. Um, I guess with the newer portraits, it's kind of different. Actually, I don't know what I'm saying.
That's okay.
Sorry, maybe we can
No,
cut this
you're
part out.
good. You're good.
Um, Sorry, could you just repeat the question?
Um, what is kind of your mindset when going into a portrait, especially if it's not somebody that you've known before?
Well, with these older portraits, this is what I was doing. I would go on Reddit and go to the Blunder Years. Let me say that again. The Blunder Years subreddit, and it's people posting like old pictures of them looking awkward and stuff from and they're usually from like the 80s and stuff. I liked a lot of like the glamour headshots and stuff like that. And so uh since I know these people are posting it and they have a sense of humor about themselves,
Mm-hmm.
I tried to make them look a little ridiculous, or I was okay with it if it turned out looking a little comical and ridiculous and stuff like that.
Do you ever
And so that's
post?
where I was getting.
Do you ever post
Hmm.
your portraits of the blunder years back into the subreddit?
Ooh, I could do that. No, I haven't. I haven't done that. They're
I think you
usually
should.
posts. Yeah, I should. They're usually posts from like a while ago. Like I go to the top posts of that subreddit and
Oh, okay.
find really good ones. And anyways, this is what I was doing like a while ago. Like these are old portraits.
Have
With the
you
new portraits,
have you come back
sorry,
to
what?
them? I was going to ask if you have you come back to them recently, but you were kind of leading into that.
I haven't come back to that style of portrait, bigger portrait. I've done a couple bigger portraits, but I've done a lot of little portraits because I've been doing the reference photos from from the 90s from my childhood reference photos. And so there's small photos and I want to make them look like the photos. And so that's been a different thing because I start with a really small portrait. I don't know if you've ever done a really small portrait,
I have
but
not.
it's such a different thing. And I don't, I'm trying to figure it out, but you have to do like such little tweaks and you have to keep going back and looking at it. And suddenly you'll see the person's face. Um,
Kind of a
anyways,
merge.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I like that style. If you wanted to hop into the next one, I believe this one is still traditional medium. So where
Yes,
where is this scene?
this is right by my condo in North Hollywood, California, on Otsego Street. Um, it was nighttime. I mean, I picked this one just because I thought it was a good representation of like m- choosing the right colors minimally to say what I wanted to say. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like if you can see like the reflections, I wish I could like show you, but like the little reflections on the windows of the, I don't know. I picked like a gradient
Yeah.
going down of three different, yeah, if you can see that. And then I also, I really liked, it took a long time trying to pick the right colors on the stop sign.
What
Uh,
size is this piece?
this is 11 by 14.
11 by 14. Okay. Is that
Mhm.
typically the size that you work with?
Generally, yeah. I get big stacks of canvas boards and I go through a bunch of those. I have some bigger stretch canvases and I do like stretch canvases, but I do so many paintings, it
That's
takes
not.
up a lot of space and stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I feel that. Um, this was one of the works that kind of, as I looked through your profile, really stood out. I like as looking not of your slice of life, that is kind of what I kind of not pinned you as. But your slice of life photos are so like mesmerizing. Have you ever seen the videos of people doing like little tiny brush strokes? And I feel like it's so time consuming and like just encapsulating a moment in time is so unique to me. I really think that like when I come back to like your cars and like um you posted one May 12th and it's a car dealership. Like just the reflections
Mm.
on the windows, the broad brush strokes that kind of still show detail is intriguing to me. Um how many
Yeah,
do
that's
you
been kind of
go for it?
mhm.
Go for it.
That's been kind of my, I really like that in art from what I've seen is like just really almost sloppy, almost looks like a kid made it or very minimal, but then still you can absolutely see it. It seems correct, you know?
Mhm.
It shows the right thing in your brain. I
Yeah.
really like that.
Do you make your own colors? Like do you blend tones together before you hit the canvas or kind of do you pick the tones out that you're going to use for a piece and kind of stay true to like the tones that you grab?
I I always try to match the colors exactly or as close as I can. I try to get it like 80% to what the color looks like on the phone.
Okay.
So like so I'm how I paint is like I have my phone in my hand, I have my paint, I have my music going, I'm dancing. I I look at my phone, I look at the color I'm trying to match. I take my brush and I go back and forth and just try to match it up. And
Okay. So you
and
blend your own tones.
then I feel
You blend
yeah.
your own tones. What's the vibe that you go for when you're playing music? Are you like calm, soothing? Are you pop, like trying to dance around? Are you hardcore?
I go through a lot of phases. It's like if I am in a certain mood, some but default usually is bossa nova, jazz.
Okay.
Sometimes, I mean, but then I'll go through like randomly. I'll put on, I want to like feel nostalgic while I paint, so I'll put on like '90s hits and stuff,
Okay.
and I'll hear like Smash Mouth, and it'll just like bring me back to that time as a kid, and it just puts me in a good mood, and it helps me to paint.
Nice. Um, I only ask because like music and art blend so well together. You think street art, you think hip hop, you think like very like classical paintings, you think like very calm, soothing music. Just kind of wanted to know where your mindset kind of hits from when you're diving into these. And then let's hop into this digital piece that you did. Is this your condo?
This is actually my ex-girlfriend's apartment that I was just dog sitting for her dog the other day, and so I was just doing a little um, from life digital painting right there.
Hmm. How long do the digital pieces take? Do you spend about average as in like your normal paintings, or do these take like a little shorter?
These are less. These are less probably. I think that took like an hour and a half, maybe an
Okay.
hour or
Do you
so.
take do you take a reference photo for these as well, or do you kind of just go from what you're seeing in front of you?
None of the iPad ones have been from reference photos. They've all been from life. So that's been looking at the reflection on her coffee table.
Have you noticed a difference in like the the amount of time? Like, do you feel more rushed because of the way like the sun moves during the day versus like that still that captured image that like everything is exactly where it's going to be at that exact same time? Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, from life is I've found it's so much harder. Like with the from a reference photo, it's a definite thing. Like my goal is to make the painting look like that image, but when it's from life, you're there's a million images that you can be looking at depending on which way you're looking, where the sun is, all sorts which thing you want to focus on, which colors. Like it's I realize it really is like cutting it all down and just trying to show what you want to show, like show
Has,
the important things.
has working on your digital art kind of brought that mentality of like, all right, I'm gonna go a little quicker, or I should say, has any aspect of your digital art like mentality and working on that transferred over to your traditional medium? Because I feel like a lot of mediums bounce around and play off of one another, and you learn new skills from like trying the other medium.
Yeah. um it's in a weird way it's affected me because when I paint, I often feel like I push too hard and stuff. Like I don't know the techniques and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
when I was pushing too hard on the iPad, it just wasn't working right, and I realized I have to go lighter, and then it just works better. And then I realized, oh, that's how you paint, or that's how you can paint too. And so it's kind of just made me calm down, like let the painting happen, like
You know,
um, so
I
in that
know
way.
my because I feel like I've learned so much from the different mediums I've dabbled. If you I recommend that you try spray paint work.
Spray
If you
paint.
yeah, I I feel
Mhm.
like the biggest lesson I've learned from spray paint is you have to be decisive if you're an indecisive person. Because if
Mm.
you hold on a certain area too long, you start to get drips, and you can't, so you have to continuously be moving. And it's such a freeing action to like have to use such a wider space and like to know what you actually want to do. And if you don't know what you or if you mess up, you can still paint over it, but you still have to be decisive the next time and like correct yourself. Otherwise, you start to leave drips or so like certain things like that aspect of like I don't know what I want to do for my acrylic painting. It's like, well, now I gotta keep moving, just keep going. It'll work itself out eventually. It's like
That does
different
sound kind of like my style. That sounds very appealing. The physical aspect of it.
the
Of
it's very physical. It's there there's a website and I can't remember the name, but if you look up legal walls near you, you can go and find places that you're allowed to go and practice your spray paint work with. And like you can just cover up
I also
other
I also
people's
have
work.
oh, sorry, I'm cutting you
No,
off.
go for it. What
I
were you
also
saying?
have a VR. I have an Oculus, and I know that they have a pretty good spray paint app,
Oh,
like
okay.
VR app. Yeah, so maybe
So
I'll try that today.
yeah, try different mediums. I like definitely recommend that like every artist kind of does that. And all I wanted to say, as we kind of break up this second segment, is that I really like your different styles. I like the way that you're playing around with so much for only kind of being into it and like still navigating and finding like your groove. I know a lot of people
Hmm.
that start and they find one thing that they're good at and they stick with it until they like ride it into the ground. And I like the fact that since November and now it's almost June, or is um now that it's almost June, you have dabbled in at least like 3 to 4 different styles of even just the same type of work. And it shows within like each new step that you take, you bring like aspects of the last part into the new work. And I think that's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, I want to make this my career, and so I want to make things that people like. But then I'm doing this for myself too, for my own emotional, mental health, everything. Like that's why I'm doing this, and so I want to progress and challenge myself, and I don't want to just like have this product that I do every day. Like I've even felt like that with like certain things like painting cars. Like I've noticed that my cars kind of do better on Instagram, so that I've thought, oh, I'm only allowed to paint cars now. Like that's all the people want. Um,
And it's such a weird game to see like what people gravitate towards. Um, like honestly though, as long as the emotion for you at the moment goes into the piece, do whatever the brain kind of tells you until you find what you like to consistently paint. Um, and people will come to that eventually, you know. Uh I I personally don't worry about the I promote my pieces on occasion just to get it out there and see if I can have the next new supporter, but I don't really mind all too much about how many followers I get on the platforms. If a piece does well, it does well. That's cool, but I still have it sitting in my studio just waiting for the next
right,
person to actually want to buy it. That being
right.
said, have you had people buy your art yet since you've started?
Yeah,
And
yeah. I've sold 5 altogether. Just sold
okay.
one the other day. I've done a couple commissions. Or no, I've done one commission and I have one coming up right now.
And
Um,
for the commissions, do they send you a reference photo and just ask you to kind of go at it? Or what are your commission styles like?
well, I've only completed one, and she gave me a bunch of reference photos. It was for her dad. It was like a picture of her grandfather's house,
Mm-hmm.
house in New Jersey. Um, and so that was actually a different thing because it was multiple reference photos rather than one specific one, which is what I was used to, which is like picking the one image that I want to make into a painting. But this was like elements from different things. I ended up switching it and kind of just picking one and adding some elements, but she was happy with it, and
What do you what
it
is
was
your
complete.
what is your standard like what's your standard rate for your commissions? Like what do you
Generally like 300
okay.
I would do it, yeah.
And how many hours do the commissions usually take you?
This one took a little longer because I had like 2 drafts rather than having 1 draft, which
Mm-hmm.
is what I normally do. So this one took, I would guess, I think like 8 or 9 hours altogether.
Okay. Yeah. And did you know the person, or was this kind of from the internet, kind of just them finding you?
This was a friend of my sister who
Okay.
lives in Ohio.
Nice. Um, I think that commission work is interesting because it brings not your vision to life, but someone else's, and kind of making like finding your inspiration within their samples. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
um, would you like to kind of keep the commission train going, or would you rather only doing like your own personal works?
I'll keep doing commissions, but that's not like my first focus. My first
Okay.
focus is just I want to paint whatever I want to paint for, but obviously I want to make money too, and people make money doing commissions, so I'll keep doing them.
Yeah. Um, I think I think commissions are like really good practice pieces almost. Like I don't want to call them practice pieces because like it's someone else that is like paying you to do your best work. But a lot of times I feel like commissions aren't true to your own style and like they're just
Mm.
based on like the last one. Um, and so you get like to play around with new ideas and kind of structure and stuff like that with pieces. And I think that I think that commissions can really help in a way to like bring out new ideas for your next piece. One
Mhm.
I know I've done several commissions that like I did not want to do. Have you um just subject matters that don't work? Have you had somebody ask you for a piece that like just doesn't work with the style that you go with?
Well, this was the first commission I did,
Mm-hmm.
but since it was a different thing, since there was multiple reference photos and stuff, I did push it off for a while. Um, and I was just like, I don't even know if I'm gonna finish this. I don't even know if I want to do. Maybe I just won't be a commission artist. Fine, I just won't do it. Um, and but then finally, I just took a deep breath and just did it. Got it done.
Got it done. Um, what if you could tell, your if since it's been a few months, like almost a year at this point since you started your page, if you could go back and tell yourself a few pieces of advice for just starting out or any of the newer artists listening, what kind of advice would you give them?
Um, Well, for other artists, the advice that has worked for me is to always, before I start painting, to always mentally get to the state I want to not force myself into a creative state. I mean, I don't know if that made sense. Like, I will force myself into a creative state by preparing through like breathing techniques and meditation and yoga. I always do that before I start painting. I don't just like go out and start painting because I want to almost think of it like as like just respect that moment always, to always prepare my own brain for it in a way. So to the advice for other people is to get into that sort of stuff, whether it's yoga or meditation or definitely exercise, all that stuff definitely helps me.
Definitely helps you. Um, and you know, have you come, with the networking of like the internet, have you come across any artists that like, do you have a community of artists that you've been working with or like that give you inspiration, bounce ideas off of?
Yeah, yeah. Let me if I remember everyone's names, like Sharon Blake Studio. There's like a lot of people that follow me and that we follow each other back, and um, we like a lot of each other's paintings. I'm also in a group of artists, like an Instagram group, where like before we post our own post, we go and like and comment all the other posts in the group. So yeah, I'm starting to get into like a little Instagram art community.
And has that, I feel, has that helped your, not necessarily your self-esteem, but has that helped you to be able to kind of find that creative groove if you ever like lose it? To know that like you have other people to like gather inspiration from. I know when I talk to other creatives, like it really jazzes me up. Like I really get to keep going. And I feel like in LA especially, you'll find tons of them out there.
Totally, yeah. And also just on Instagram, if you follow a lot of artists, if you're then you're always exposed to art. That has been inspiring me a lot too. To just
Mm-hmm.
always just scroll through and just see art, art, art. You know.
If you're, um, I like to think that to at least for myself, if I'm consistently surrounding myself with creativity, new things emerge, and I find that to be very useful in like not only art, but like other areas as well. I feel like my energy goes up if I'm around like creatives. I met someone a few days ago when I was spray painting, and like that jazzed me up for a whole like 2 days afterwards, being able to say like, all right, I met this guy. I'm about to go out there again. We're about to go like tag some stuff together, do some other work. Um, so I think that that community is very important, and I'm glad that you have kind of found that sector within Instagram. And just let you know, there are tons out there, Facebook, TikTok, wherever it is. I feel like the art community is the most accepting of all like the subcultures of the internet when it comes to like
Yeah,
finding a spot.
it
Um,
definitely seems like that for sure.
do you have any upcoming projects that you're working on, like any bigger works, anything that you'd like to kind of talk about as we, you know, wrap things up?
Honestly, no. I have my daily paintings I'm always doing. I'm always posting them
And
on Instagram
where can they find that Instagram?
at Max Bussell Art.
Gotcha.
That's the whole thing. Max Bussell Art.
And if they ever want to find a commission from you, where just go through the DM, or is there a email attached that I we should be aware of?
Yeah, you can just DM
Gotcha.
for any inquiries.
Well, thank you so much, Max. It has been a pleasure to talk with you today. I think that your work is great. I'm excited to see kind of where your new styles lead into. I'll definitely make sure to keep following the journey that you're on.
Thank you so much. This was great.
But you guys have been listening to another episode of the Clean Palette podcast. I have been your host, Justice Johnson. And until next week, stay creative.